Today I'm finally going to announce something that a lot of you guys have been asking me for almost a year now, and that is for me to do another perfumery competition. So I'm happy to announce, ladies and gentlemen, that today we are finally going to be starting a brand new perfumery competition, and this one is even more spicy than the last one. So in this video I'm going to go over the details of the competition, what it's about, how you can enter it, and when the deadline is, and what the prize is for the winners. So if you're interested in a perfumery competition, then stick around for this video. So I've written out all the details on a sheet of paper because I can't keep them all in my head and I'll probably forget something. But essentially this competition is going to be run in the Discord group. So if you're not already part of my Discord, then check out the link in the description of this video and you can go and join the Discord. Discord is basically an app that is used as like a chat room. It's often used by people playing video games, but just about everyone has a Discord these days. So if you can download Discord for free, and if you want to enter this competition and read the full rules and details, then just join the Discord and there'll be a channel in the Discord server where you can read everything you need to know. So then, the competition. What is it? Now, this time we're going to do something a little bit different. So last time the competition was basically just submit your best formulas, or submit a simple perfume formula, and I'll pick the best ones. So if you're interested in looking actually at last year's competition, I'll put a link in the description to the video where I went over all the results for that competition. I think we had about 12 or so entries last year. Hopefully this year we'll have a few more entries because the channel has grown since then, and I know a lot of people who were skeptical the first time because they thought they weren't good enough yet necessarily at perfumery are now more confident in their perfumery. So this is not just a plain competition like the last one, just chuck a formula at me. This one is also a bit of a community project as well. And the inspiration for this, the inspiration comes a little bit from this book by Jean-Claude Ellena, The Diary of a Nose, because my favorite feature of this book is that in the back of the book, he gives you some of his combinations or how to make some accords in perfumery. So he gives you just maybe 3 or 4 raw materials that you can combine together to make a certain smell, or at least the illusion of a smell. The thing that I really like about those formulas is that they're really simple because they only contain a few raw materials. They're really easy for anyone just to get those raw materials and go and put them together. They're not always perfect, but I think they do a really good job for their simplicity. Now, my idea for this competition was to try to make something similar. So I was thinking, when you do perfumery right, you usually end up focusing on a few certain accords or smells particular to the projects you work on or your tastes. So how about we kind of get the community together and try to get the best ones of those little accords or formulas from everyone. So the idea here is really to gain really simple but good little formulas that everyone can use. What I wanted to do in this competition was to take all of the winning entries and actually publish them into a mini book. So all of the accords, all of the formulas are kind of compiled into this resource which everyone can go and look at and use as inspiration for their own perfumes. Another thing which gave me inspiration for this competition was actually Jamie Oliver, who is a famous chef. He's got a book where he does a load of recipes, and each of those recipes only have 5 ingredients. So it's all about what really nice recipes can you make that are really simple. They only have 5 things inside of them. So here I wanted to do something similar, inspired by that and Jean-Claude Ellena's really simple formulas. The idea is that we're just trying to make here nothing too fancy and complex, but just really simple, basic, effective formulas that everyone can use. So the way it's going to work is like this. The competition is going to be split up into 3 categories. Those categories are accords, bases, and perfume bases, and each person is allowed to submit 1 formula per category. The reason each person is only allowed to submit 1 formula per category is because I really want people to essentially submit the best formula that they're willing to share for this competition. I don't want it to be inundated by just loads of formulas because it's going to be really hard to go and make them all and judge them. I really want people to essentially submit something they found which they think is really, really cool that they want to share. So the 3 different categories. the way it's going to work is for accords. So it's going to be anything you want. It doesn't matter if it's a real accord, something like Apple, or an abstract accord. You just found a combination you really like. And there's no minimums. I guess the minimum number of raw materials for each of these is going to be 2, because it can't just be a single thing on its own. That kind of defeats the point. But for accords, it's going to be a maximum of 5 raw materials. So you can have anywhere from 2 to 5 raw materials that combine together. And in the accords category, there's no proportions or quantities. It's just a listing of the raw materials, like in Jean-Claude Elena's book. So the idea is, hey, these things work well together, but the proportions don't strictly matter that much. Then for the basis category, the difference here is that now we can actually go and use proportions. And for the basis category, instead of the limit of 5 raw materials, I thought we would allow 8, just because I know that sometimes when you're making bases, especially for certain things, you want to add tiny amounts of this or that. But just because you're allowed to use 8 things doesn't mean you should. Ideally, you would keep the formulas as simple as possible. If it's just 4 or 5 lines, that's even better. So the basis category, like the accords category, but with quantities for each thing. Then finally, the perfume basis category. This is similar to the basis category, but the difference here is that the base can really be anything. So again, it can be like something realistic, like an apple, or a certain smell, or some kind of a cool smell that you found. But then the perfume basis category, if you haven't seen my video on perfume bases, then definitely go check that out, because that will really explain what I mean by this term. I'll put a link in the description. But essentially the idea here is a base that makes up the majority of the structure of a perfume. And it's a base that doesn't have necessarily a particular personality. It's something that's quite generic and quite versatile. So you could use it to make a lot of different perfumes. The thing about the perfume base is it's really like a structure or a scaffold for the perfume. So it should have good performance characteristics. It should have things like good longevity, good projection, and it should be nicely balanced. But it shouldn't be really limiting in the way it smells. It shouldn't be very thematic. It should be general, because the idea is that you can then go and add different combinations of notes on top of it to really completely alter how this final perfume smells. It's a bit like kind of the pizza base for a custom perfume. The idea is then you just go and add your own toppings on top of it, and then you get completely different results each time. So perfume bases are the final category, and again, there's a limit on up to 8 raw materials for those. So just some details then on how you submit all of these things. So all of the formulas should be written as relative percentages of the perfume concentrate. So just the way a normal perfume formula would be written, i.e. in this case we're ignoring any of the extra alcohol. But you should also include a recommended use percentage, just to give an idea of kind of how strong it should be, because, for example, when I made my petrichor accord for Rain, the whole thing was actually really, really weak, because all of those raw materials were really strong. Whereas other accords, especially some of the perfume bases, you'd end up using them at really high levels in your final perfume. For example, they may be something like 10% or more in the final product. Along with your formula, you should also try to include a name and a description of the formula. And in the description, I really want the focus to be on what inspired the formula or what it's meant to be, and kind of any tips on how to use it. Then also, it'll be good if you could include your name, because when I'm doing the final book, I would quite like to put people's actual names on the formulas, as opposed to just some like weird username in the Discord. That said, if you don't want to include your real name, then we will work out some way of you being able to do the competition without having to put your real name. So it might just be something like by anonymous in the final thing. In order to submit your entry, you simply need to join the Discord, and I will make a special forum channel for this competition. And all you need to do is create a new post in that forum channel, so like a new forum post, and that will be your entry. So you just put in the formula, description, name, all of that stuff. And another thing is, all of the formulas, it needs to be your own work. It can't be something you've just copied somewhere off the internet or you've kind of lifted from somewhere else. It does need to be your own work. The deadline for entries is going to be the longest day of the year. So I think that is June 21st, and this year is 2023. So you've got about 3 months or so to go and come up with your formula and submit it. Though of course, if you've got a formula lying around, you don't have to make something especially for the competition. If you've got a really nice formula that you want to share, then of course you can just go and submit that. So then, how are the winners going to be chosen? So the way this is going to work is that once you've submitted your formula, either myself or at least three people in the community need to essentially rate your formula as good for it to be eligible to be in the final book. And the winners will be included in this final book, right? Now, the reason for doing it like this, as opposed to in the past where it had to be on my raw materials list, is that now you can actually enter something which isn't on my list of raw materials. Do bear in mind, however, that your formulas should be aimed at using the most common materials as you can. And that's going to help firstly because in order for you to find three people to actually go and rate that formula, you're going to need other people in the community to have those raw materials. So if it's really rare, obscure raw materials, then no one's going to be able to actually rate your formula, which means it's just not going to be able to be included. But also it's kind of for the result of the project, because the idea is to compile this really helpful resource of formulas. And if all those formulas are made up of really obscure raw materials that no one can obtain, then it's not actually going to be very useful for anyone. So aim to use common raw materials where possible, and this way there is kind of at least a mechanism for you to be able to use something a bit more unusual or something that I don't have if you want to. At this stage, I'm not 100% sure exactly the criteria for something to make the final cut. And the reason for that is I don't know how many formulas we're going to get and the quality level of those formulas. So there's a case where everyone that's had 3 votes for their formula will get included in the book. But if, for example, there's way too many formulas, then I might have to come up with some secondary criteria. And of course, all of the ones that I really like, I will just go and include in the book, because at the end of the day, it's my competition, so I can do that. But really, the reason for that is just because if I think something is really good, then of course I want it to be included in the winners, right? But if it's something that I can't make myself, I'm not able to make, then I don't know, so I'm just going to have to leave it in the trust of the community to be able to rate it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. Anyway, I'm going to try to make as many of these as possible, but obviously if we get a really high volume of entries, then it might not be possible for me to go and make every single one. And of course, I'm not going to be able to go and make the ones I don't have the stuff for. So then, the prize, how is this going to work? So all of the winners are going to be published in this small book. And the book is going to have 3 different sections. So a section for the accords, a section for the bases, and a section for the perfume bases. And the winning entries will have some space where the formula, the title, the description, hopefully, and their name, that kind of thing is all included. And the winners are actually going to get a physical copy of the book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this book, and then I'm actually going to go and physically get it printed. And anyone who's a winner, so anyone whose work is actually included in the book, I will physically, for free, give you a free copy of this book and ship it out for you. Then what happens after that is that there will be extra copies of this physical book. I will go and then sell those on my online store, and I won't try to make a massive profit out of these books, but there will be some fee to cover the cost of printing the books, the cost of sending all of these books out to the winners, and also the costs of the time for me running the competition, doing the layout for the book, getting it printed, organized, all of that kind of stuff. Then I will also put a digital copy of the book for download for free online so that anyone can access all of this information, and the aim is to keep that for free. I will change it after a while to charge for it if the sales of the physical copies haven't yet covered all of the costs for running the competition. But hopefully enough people go and buy the physical books for it to be covered, which means that anyone will always be able to download a free copy of the book. And obviously anyone who entered the competition can go and download a free copy of the book. So just by entering the competition, hopefully you get some kind of incentive, which is that you're still going to get access to this amazing resource of formulas. Now, obviously, by entering the competition, you essentially put your formula in the public domain. You kind of allow, or you kind of give the right for it, all the information you've submitted for the competition to be printed and included as part of that book. So just bear that in mind. If there's a formula that you want to keep secret and you want to keep it safe for your brand or this or that, then feel free to keep that to yourself and don't submit it for the competition. But this competition, the idea is for you to submit the best formulas that you're willing to share, with the community. So that's really what I want it to be all about. I will try to include something of my own as well, so it's not all just you guys. I will try to include some formulas also. So yeah, that's the competition. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Hopefully it's a good idea, because I really do think this is a cool idea, because this way it's not just a competition about who's made the best formula. It's really actually building this really cool resource that's going to help everyone out with their perfumery. Because if one person puts in a really good formula and there are like 50 people who all put in a really good formula, then everyone at the end of it's going to have a book with 50 really good formulas inside, which I think is really cool. And also you will then have the, let's say, the kind of proof in the future when everyone's stolen everyone else's formulas. You will be able to point back to this book and say, look, I originally wrote that formula, which is kind of nice as well. So that's competition. Join the Discord, go to the link in the video description. You can join the Discord and you can enter the competition in the channel, which I'm going to make for the competition. Good luck with your entries, and I will see you soon with an update.